Hi, my name is Marissa, and my three favorite TED Talk presenters are Wendy Chung, Martin Hezek, and Biel Lato. First presenter is Wendy Chung, and her presentation is about autism. She discusses about what we do and don't know about autism, what are the causes, and how we can go to catch it at a young age. My favorite part about this presentation is when Chung is about to discuss the causes of autism. However, before she gets started, Chung becomes really emotional and clearly states that vaccines do not cause autism, that the journal that claimed this was immediately retracted, and the author, who was a physician, lost his license. That alone drove the audience in with an overwhelming clap of approval. She makes great use of slides that are mostly visuals and help explain her point of view. Next up is Martin Hezek, and his presentation is about what is and isn't life. He first goes in saying that crystal isn't life and that a cat is. He also dives into the grave area, things that act alive but aren't, kind of like viruses and parasites. Martin then introduces protocells, which are basically primitive cells made of chemicals and molecules. After he describes what a protocell is, he then jumps into his slides and shows experiments, one by one. And what I really like about that is that he slowly lets the audience in. He makes sure that the audience doesn't become lost in what they're looking at. After each slide, Martin constantly references back on how each characteristic is lively and what he's trying to accomplish, basically his point. What I really got the most out of his presentation is that he is obviously passionate and excited about his experiments and findings, and that is what really keeps his presentation from becoming one of those really boring informational speeches. Lastly, Martin wraps up the possibility of finding life on other planets and finding the characteristics of other life, even if it's not quite the same as ours. The last presentator that I will be discussing is Biel Lato. Lato's presentation was about visual illusions. He first starts off with two props, a black rectangle and a white rectangle filled with colorful circles. He then goes up to the audience and asks them which ones are the same from each rectangle. When the audience answers, he then reveals the correct color, and the audience immediately gasps and is drawn in, and they just wanted more. Lotto then goes into his presentation about how we, as humans, use a lot of color to survive and perceive certain objects. Lotto brings in more illusions to test the audience perception of light and shadows and how the brain changes the colors automatically depending on the situation. Lastly, Lotto talks about the use of technology in creating sound through color. This can really help with the visually impaired or just make really great music. Lotto, Lotto's presentation was heavily propped and cited, but it wasn't overwhelming. Lastly, the 10 qualities that I picked up from each speaker. Each speaker had a hook, that first subject point that really drew in the audience and took off the presentation. Pace. They all had a really good pace. Not too slow, not too fast, and the audience wasn't left in the middle, lost. Eye contact. Constantly looking at the audience, just always bringing them in. They were really funny, especially when it came to Martin and his experimentations. They had a clear point and a star. They also had a hero, which is obviously the audience, because without them, their ideas couldn't take off. They each had a story from beginning, middle, and end. They were all emotional, especially when it came to Chong and her things about autism, and passion when it came to all three of them.